As always, I'm delighted to welcome you to the Front Burner. Yes, we talk about burning issues here, but we do not escalate them. We only bring them to the attention of those who can effect a change so that things can go smoothly for businesses, economy, and there can be improved development all around. That's our goal here. I'm blessing Eichie. I'm not the only one who has that goal. I said that's our goal. Meet the rest of the team. Dr. Idahosa Osamhanze and Oyinpreye Krumale. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, blessing. Good morning, prayer. A beautiful Tuesday morning.
Oh, yes, it is.
To our viewers out there.
Good morning, blessing.
Good morning, prayer.
Good morning, doctor. It's great to be here again.
Okay, the way you sound so cool, whoever is listening to you will be thinking, this gentle guy. But wait till you see the kind of fire you can bring on.
But just look at it. It's looking like that young man who went to visit another president the other day.
Okay.
And you can imagine what can
It's my cousin. It's my cousin. I like him.
Well, that's a great way to start the show today. But before we get into the conversations, there is something you don't want to miss. And Swift Aderito is waiting to let you know what that is. Now let's get into what matters after something you don't want to miss, and that will be looking at some stories that made it into the news as well. One of them is the commencement of the CBN's new policy regarding ATM withdrawals. So ATMs have been loaded with cash as a 100 naira withdrawal fee begins. Banks have begun implementing the Central Banks of Nigeria revised ATM withdrawal fees, charging 100 naira per transaction for withdrawals from other banks' ATMs and up to 500 naira for off-site ATMs, while banks have ensured their machines are stocked with cash to encourage customers to use their own bank's ATMs. Many Nigerians are frustrated by the added financial burden. The Trade Union Congress and SERAP have condemned the policy, urging its reversal, citing economic hardship. The CBN has advised customers to withdraw from their own banks' ATMs or use alternative payment methods to avoid the charges. So finally, this is March, and the commencement of a 100 naira fee charged for withdrawals from ATM. When you withdraw 20,000 naira or less, you get to be charged 100 naira. Now, when you do that withdrawal from ATMs off-site, maybe those located outside of bank premises, you get to be charged 500 naira. And the funny thing is that at this time where these charges are implemented, the ATM machines are loaded with cash. So the banks say if you do not want to be charged, then there are alternative means. Maybe you could do bank transfer, you could do e-transaction. But the question is, one question, from where did the cash come? You know, we talked about cash availability at ATM points. That was a conversation we had some time ago. And now SERAP and trade unions are saying this policy is harsh. It is frustrating regarding considering the economic hardship. There should be a reversal. What do you think, Doc? Have you been to the ATM in the last couple of days since we got into March?
Well, I can't remember the last time I had visited ATM.
Oh, it seems like you was fully cash policy.
I can't remember the last time I visited ATM. And I think in most part of the last 2 years, the machines haven't been really dispensing money as such. And the alternative that are available is either you do a transfer where cards become absolutely very necessary. You have to go to a POS to pay your charge, and you can get transaction done. You see, the problem here is the fact that we are weak in change management. Now, when a change is about to happen, the authority or institution responsible for that change, in which case the change champion, have a duty to communicate to the people what exactly you are doing. You see, we sit down in the office, We write a 2-page policy paper or a 1-page press release, put it on the internet or in the media. Oh, from March 1, we'll now be charging 100 naira if you are withdrawing here, charging 200 if you are withdrawing here. But we are not even explaining to the people who are charging what's the reason for these charges. How does it help him or help the society? Now, this conversation, nobody is having it. And this is why you are seeing a lot of protestation, because people don't really understand that it's like a deliberate move just by the CBN to continue to empower the banks that are already exploiting the average man on the streets. And banks are declaring profits in billions of naira. And yet, the man who struggled hard to put a 20,000 in his bank account, there are deductions that are happening for SMS that are not sent or are solicited. And you are having maintenance charges, deductions on your ATM card
withholding
use,
tax, and many
and
others.
you cannot even explain it. And I think this is where the confusion is. And I feel that it is a responsibility of those who are giving this assignment to be able to talk to the public. And they must be in the eye of the public to let people understand that there's a reason for this kind of a thing. Oh, we want to raise money, and this money is going to be channeled to do this XYZ. And people can understand. But as it is, many citizens are left really wondering because you don't know why we are punished. Because this is like a fine. So what's the difference of having, when there's an NIBBS that has united all the banks together, that on my ATM I pay 100 naira, and then on somebody else's ATM I have to pay 500 naira. So why the disparity? All this thing needs explanation.
Well, I don't even think it's about explanation for me, because at this point, I doubt any explanation will hold sway for me, because the charges are astronomical. Now, how do you charge 100 naira per transaction, and offsite you charge 500 naira per transaction? So if I'm withdrawing 500 naira, I'm going to pay rather, if I'm withdrawing 20,000 naira, I'm going to pay 500 naira. When we were talking about the high charges by the POS operators, it had not even gotten to 500 naira for 20,000 naira, except you go to very busy places, and because of the volume of commercial activities that takes place there, they want to take advantage of it to exploit people. But aside that, it is still it was 100 naira for 5,000 naira, but of recent we've seen that in many places that has gone to 200 naira for 5,000 naira, and then for 10,000 some still collect 400, 300, some are still a bit reasonable. For 20,000 naira some collect 400 naira. Then when you go to very busy places, you can get maybe like 500 naira. So it's looking like even the POS operators that go out of their way, source from banks, source from other people who transact a lot of business with cash, are more considerate than the commercial banks that are supposed to be very considerate for customers who are depositing money with them. It's looking like CBN makes counter policies to frustrate its cashless policies. Now you want to encourage people to do financial transactions, and at the same time, you're the one complaining that the amount of cash in circulation is out of the banking system, and you are charging this. So those who have the cash don't see the reason why they should lodge that cash with you, because they will pay so much more for withdrawing it. You don't pay them for depositing the cash. How are you charging them so much more for withdrawing the cash? It just makes me feel like, what sort of operations are we running? What sort of system are we running? Why do we try to make it very difficult for business people, for average people to have meaningful living in this country? So at this point, I don't think any explanation they want to give, whether you say it's for maintenance charge, is to take care of whatever expenses, it's too much. If you're charging, because someone can make multiple transactions in a day, or even if just one person, how many persons do you charge 500 naira per transaction? That's a lot of money when you put that together. What are you maintaining? What are you paying for exactly?
Okay, in fact, if I look at it from from a very critical, from a very, very critical position, I can see, or I can begin to think that there is still a secret battle between the conventional banks and the fintechs. And we see it playing out in different guise. In all this conversation, tell me, where is the benefit of the fintechs? The fintechs are almost out of the picture. They are not there at all. So it looks like the big brother of the big brother playing the regulatory role of the conventional banks, is there, and as they've made this law and they've stamped it and the banks can go on. It's obvious where the cash is going to. It's going to the banks. The banks are making money. If they are declaring profit, they are going to declare more profit by way of this, because trust me, people are going to use those off-site ATMs and they will pay 500 naira. And during weekends, you will see, just be watching, those off-site ATMs will be filled. Banks ATMs too will be filled. So the banks...
Sorry to cut in.
Yes.
Where are they getting this cash to fill the ATMs? Because before this policy, it was as if the cash was very scarce. They don't have cash. So does it look like the bank has been hoarding cash? So now you've implemented the policy, cash is coming out. You're loading the ATMs with cash from where? Are you printing more now?
Okay, so I think probably the banks want to tell you that, look, this policy just started. Your argument of asking us questions where we got the cash is immature.
It is not immature. It's premature.
It's premature. So just
where
wait.
Did the cash come
Why
from?
don't you allow the policy to operate for like 3 weeks, 2 months, and see that there is a consistent way of loading our ATMs with cash, that we never run out of cash, then we can now choose them that way. So we'll give them the long rope. However, the fintechs are the receiving end. I was saying that who are the people gaining? The conventional banks are gaining. The ATMs are going to be loaded from now on. So what you will see is that they're not loading the ATMs and say, oh, those who don't want you to go and use other banks' ATM, come and use yours, so that you will not be charged that 100 naira. But you see what? It's tactical, because there are some areas you go, the banks that you use is not there at all. So you have to use them if you need to transact.
It seems like some
in cash.
manipulation.
Yes. So the CUDA banks, the what are their names? The OPay.
We don't need their names right
The Palm Pays, all of them. Some of them give cards. They have cards. Where are they going? And they know that these are the people winning Nigerians. They are the people, when it comes to the cashless policy, they are belling the cards. It's not even the commercial banks. And the commercial banks have been angry from the onset. You could remember vividly, there were times where they, were sanctioning these fintech banks. They were sanctioning them, and they were telling Nigerians, look, your money is not guaranteed. Your money is not safe if you continue to transact on this platform.
Let's be careful here. Were they wrong in looking into the activities of some of these e-banks or
fintechs?
Platforms, payment platforms, because some of them did not have the license to carry out the activities that they were doing at that particular time.
Yes, no, it's not. We are not wrong. We are not wrong by looking. The government has, through the central bank and through other relevant agencies, has the authority to regulate, to license, to take back the license if they default and all of that. But the thing is, the way they were really pushing it, it was a battle. I was watching the worst scenario, and it became obvious that they cannot win the battle anymore. And we see regulations being churned out here and there. If the fintechs were brought into the picture as part of those that will be receiving the largest at this moment we're talking about, then we can begin to have a rethink. And from the way it's going, it will take quite a while for the conventional banks to have systems or to run systems to be able to, compete very well efficiently with the fintech operations for them to really, stand at par when it comes to the cashless policy.
The cashless policy should not be a matter of whether it's being pushed by the fintechs or pushed by conventional bank. The cashless policy works, both the fintech and the conventional banks work together. In fact, the fintech was supposed to aid the migration from a cash-dependent economy to a cashless economy. So the reason why it looks like it's the fintechs that are being edged out is because the fintechs do not have they do not really operate with cash. So whether you have a bank account with fintechs, you will still need to make that withdrawal of cash using the conventional banking system. So that's not really the challenge here. The challenge here is why it looks like for people to use cash, they have to pay so much. Now we understand that the aim that CBN will give, or the reason CBN will give, is to encourage people to do more of e-transactions. But let's also look at the rate of success of that. When you have more people doing e-transactions, what is the rate of success?
The e-transaction is not free.
It is not free, but it's not as expensive. It is not as expensive as when you withdraw. But the rate of success is also an issue.
Over-regulated economy. We are superlatively over-regulated, and this is huge, because when you're looking at what happens in the space elsewhere, people do transactions and nobody is fined this heavily. Nobody. So if somebody is putting money in the bank, let's even assume that we're a cash dependent economy. I am coming to save money with the bank. There's no interest coming on the money. The only thing we get is deduction. So saving become a disincentive. And I think that is even my biggest challenge. That if you're going to charge people money for putting money in the bank, and they're going to take their money back, they are depositing, they are paying, they are withdrawing, they are paying.
Look, somebody's sending money to their account, they are paying.
So why all these multiple payments? What is it meant for? That's why I said, in my own way of looking at it, is the fact that I think they need more talking to the people. We cannot just keep people in abeyance and say, okay, let everybody be guessing what is this meant for. If CBN don't want money in circulation, I don't think it's by punishing people whose little money. Take for example a man who is earning 35,000 in a month, and he needs that money to survive, and it's paid into his bank account, and then you remove these monies from him.
So if he has to make that withdrawal using off-site ATM,
you have to pay 500 naira.
No, he's going to pay more than that, 35,000 naira. So he's going to pay like 1,000 naira.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we must put some certain things into place. And I think that even when government says, so we are not going to tax poverty, this for me is taxing poverty. Because the people that actually needs these things are the people who are down that level. I had this conversation with a group when, of course, the MFLA redesign policy came. And my question was the fact that, yes, while you were making this redesign and say, oh, you didn't want people to have access to cash, the first thing that we would have done was, number one, you didn't consider the people who are very poor, who needs to go through this process. Maybe somebody is sending 3,000 to you. You want to go and withdraw it, and that's not 3,000. Somebody else had to take 100 naira or 200 naira, and at that time it was even 1,000.
Yes.
to collect 3,000 naira, especially in the remote village.
Yes.
You really put them into account before you push out your policy. And that was why there was a whole lot of outcry. Because the people that you thought you were targeting don't need those money. The people who really needed the money to go and buy medicine in the drug, in the pharmacy, you are shortchanging them. And then, of course, you also did factor in that if we don't want cash in this economy, CBN should stop printing 1,000 notes, stop printing 500 notes, and stop printing 200 naira notes into circulation. Let it be that it's only 100 naira notes that is in circulation. And that is enough demotivation for people to trade cash, if exactly that is what you want. But unfortunately, we don't really understand what's this policy direction. What is this supposed to be doing for the economy? Or is it just to enrich the banks
at the detriment of the
fintech,
people?
At the expense of the people. So these are conversations that I think those who manage CBN really need to look at.
What about the aspect of SERAP and the trade unions asking for a reversal? Does it look like this is a policy that will be reversed?
Oh, well, so the Central Bank of Nigeria is involved. And these are not people that will give heed to SERAP, except probably SERAP takes them to court. And from what's happening, it's like there's already a pending court case concerning this. So we're going to see how that is going to go. But most likely, I don't see where it's going to take us going through that process where SERAP and the NLC is trying to hold back the hands. Now, I brought out some information about the way we had conducted transactions and how we've been having the mounting volume of cash transaction using the mobile money app transfer and using the USSD. So I would like to know just a few of that information. Mobile app transfers with a total volume of 831.54 billion in 2021 increased to 1.86 trillion in 2022, reflecting a 123.85% change in transaction volume. The total transaction value for mobile app transfers, that's mobile app, increased from 53.20 trillion naira in 2021 to 111.12 trillion naira in 2022, a noteworthy of 108.84 year-on-year growth. Now, that's in 2022. We are in 2025. And according to the statistics, in 2025, Nigeria should have gotten to the place where we have about 60% penetration of smartphones into Nigerian populace. So if we have like 60% and we are about 200 million or 219 million plus, then we should be looking at about 143 million Nigerians who should have a smartphone on their hands, on the palm of their hands. And because opening bank account these days has become so easy, you don't need to have some form of money in your account, just like in those days, in the days of doc, where you can't just open an account without money in it. This time you have to open money, you have to open an account, there is no money in it, with zero balance. Then you start transacting to make money, to put money in it, and before you know it, almost everyone, I can dare say almost all secondary school students have bank accounts. So that's where we are going. And I think we are making good move concerning that. And thanks to the fintech platforms who have come to make things quite easy. But they are not having it easy with the regulatory authorities, because at some point in time, the business of politics will come into play, and the politics of business will also have its own way of dictating where the pendulum will swing in this case. And it's very obvious in our eyes where we are going. So I think they are trying to create a level playing field where the conventional system of banking will also, not be, dwarfed by the fintechs. Since there's a way of looking at the fintechs that, look, you were not right here with us.
I will think that this works in the favor of the fintechs, because for the fintech digital platforms, many of them do not charge you the way the conventional banks charge. So if I didn't have a fintech account, I would want to open one because the conventional bank would charge me when someone pays into my account. When I make a transfer, I'm charged.
They charge you both sides.
But the fintech digital payment platforms will not do that. So it will be safe for me, cheaper for me to migrate there and live in whatever
but you see, the big issue here is the regulatory authority. And I think for me, it's just the real focus. Because whether you like it or not, they're coming at the fintech. Because by the time charges are imposed on the fintech, of course it will pass on to account holders.
Yes.
Definitely.
But not as much as the conventional banks.
So whether it's at the same rate, it depends on what they're taking from the fintech. The point is here is the people that are the victim here are those who are the lowest rung of the ladder. The unbanked Nigerians.
It's even a disincentive to the financial inclusion that the CBN says.
So this is where we must look at it. It's disingenuous, really, for us to sit down and be thinking that, oh, we want to be taking 1 naira, 100 naira from the very poor. And yet we're talking about, we're including them in the financial service sector. These guys don't have it. 100 naira means so much to them.
It does.
I'm wondering, do you think that it's only people who are the elite that banks?
But Doc, they have an argument as well. They would tell you that, look, you have an alternative. Use the banking app. Use the USSD code. They could say that use the banking app. Use the USSD code.
Let's look at that alternative.
No, they don't have a bank account.
How many transfers do you make at a time and you find that this rate?
When you are talking about alternative, we're talking about alternative. You have to assume that 90% or 98% of the population are banked. What is the total size of the banked population in Nigeria? And you see, most of these people who live in the rural areas, they have to drive kilometers before they can access a bank. They are banked. Now, if they are giving and sending small money to them in the village and they need to go get it, these are the people that you're actually punishing. And I think people must understand you see, when we set out a policy, the first thing people should think is, who are the beneficiary? And who will be the victim of this kind of policy? And then you go out to test it to the people. You don't sit at the comfort of your bank and assume that it's only the people in the city who uses these services. Internet access, as we speak in Nigeria today, is still about 56%. So which means we have not even covered so much. So why are you talking about bank app when people don't have access to internet? So for you to be able to take such drastic move, you must ensure that there's an alternative people can resort to. And what this will mean is that you are still encouraging people to put money in their homes rather than put it in the bank, because it's punitive to save with the charges.
It's not even savings anymore, because saving is that you're putting away something, or you're putting away money that when you need it, you have it. The way it happens really these days is that you're putting away money. By the time you need it, that money is not the same amount that you kept there. It must have lost some.
This is a country where people
it is not savings,
die for 100 naira, 20 naira.
It is not savings anymore. And there's supposed to be interest payable to those who operate savings accounts. But the banks will tell you that there is even condition attached to it. So some banks will say, if you make withdrawal more than 4 times from that account, you're not eligible to be paid the interest that should accrue to your account for you operating.
How much is the interest?
It's even the percentage is even minimal. It's even minimal. Even that minimal interest, they do not even want to pay. Now let's look at the implication of this on the economic activities, the cost of goods and services. Now, when the cost of fund is so expensive, the cost of transaction is so high, how does this impact on inflation? CBN is talking about targeting inflation dropping. And all of this is happening, this counterproductive policies. What do we see happening at the end of March alone, Doc?
Well, I that's what I'm saying. I wasn't in that table where that decision is taken. And by the principle of change management, communication is important. And I just feel that they are not communicating enough. To first and foremost, let people even understand what are the rationales. What are we trying to cure? What is the evidence that if we follow this route, that the problem we intend to solve actually is solvable? All these questions needs to be answered. And this is the only way it will be easier for actually to make an informed comment. To see whether it's actually going to, because all you're talking about is that there's too much cash in the system, you want to pull it away. That's what you say, if that's the motivation for the charges. So that people will not be carrying cash all about. Hey, good and fine. You have other very little way to do this. If you say, for example, today, the highest denomination in Nigeria that I can find anywhere in the bank is 50 naira. So if people want to go and withdraw cash, they will be thinking the volume that they have to carry.
50,000 naira.
Yes, to be able to withdraw a 20,000 naira or 10,000 naira. So that for me is a way to discourage it. Rather than imposing fine. I don't call it charges or levy, I call it fine on the very poor. Because those people, one way or the other, become, so if you say a bank ATM that is offsite can charge 500. If a POS woman
charges
is
1,
charging 1,005 for 3,000, I don't think he's committing any crime.
Because you that gets this money for free, you are charging.
So look at it.
You're charging very high.
Look at it. So this is the way we, and I think they need to come out to talk.
Okay, so I want to actually address what Blessing, the very critical question Blessing asked about the tendency of this reflecting in the number of inflation, in the number of inflation. Yes, 34.4%. It was when we rebased
that it came to 24.
That does not reflect in the pocket of the people. It's just the rebasing that, restructured that. And now if we are to do that, that means when you work, you get your salaries paid to your account. You go there, you withdraw the money. You are taxed for withdrawing. You're going to pay VAT.
Yes.
Because after the 100 naira tax, you will pay VAT. So some banks are even charging 107 naira 5 kobo. 107 naira 5 kobo. They are charging that because of the 7.5% increase in value added tax. So this, of course,
and that's not the only charge.
That's not the only charge. Let's even assume you are withdrawing from your own bank ATM,
which may not likely have cash.
It's not going to be 100 naira, yes,
because 500 naira is more profitable than 100 naira.
Yeah, so you'll be charged as well, though it's not as high as 100 naira, but you'll be charged instead of them saying it's free, as if it's completely free. Didn't we do it? Even the apps that you transfer, it's not free. You are being charged for it. And so when you want to buy stuff, I tell you now, and people bring out their POS, you will pay.
Yeah, look,
apart from paying the normal charge,
that payment has been there.
We have been normalizing.
And now it's even more enforced.
Yes.
When you say you want to pay using POS, they tell you to add 50 naira for the charges.
For the charges.
So everything comes with a charge.
So
every
what does that imply, Blessing?
with a charge.
That means the price of stuff goes higher.
Yes.
Each and every time. So even if there is a mild increase by way of demand and supply, it's going to go higher than the percentage that demand and supply has imposed on the system. So inflation, at the moment, it doesn't look like it's going to be coming down.
And then the purchasing power of the masses are going to be further reduced, because from the point of withdrawal, the amount of money at your disposal has already reduced. So whatever it is you wanted to buy with it or do with it, you are now considering making opportunity costs because you don't have enough money anymore. If you had 20,000 naira, and you know it's going to be more than 100 or 500 naira for withdrawal, because most ATMs don't even pay you 20,000 naira for a single withdrawal. So you are going to make at least 2 withdrawals
to be
able to get 20,000 naira. If you are charged 100 naira per transaction, so that means that for your own bank's ATM, you are likely to pay 200 naira to get 20,000 naira. If you use the off-site ATMs, you are likely to pay 8,000 naira to get 20,000 naira. That's a lot of money for people to pay just to get back their own money. I think that at this point, it's rests on CBN to more than just explain. Find a way to, if not reverse this, reduce the charges. This is killing. Now, we cannot be operating the financial system like this is some, back way of exploiting the people. When people put money in the banking system, it is because they trust that you can keep that money for them. And it's because they want the convenience of being able to get it back when they want that money. They should not be punished for keeping money in the banks with which you run businesses and you get interest. You don't even pay the people interest. The interest amount that goes for savings accounts is very, very little, yet there are conditions attached to it. This is too much. We should not be waiting for SERAP or trade organizations to drag the CBN. I think it's a human thing to do for the CBN at this point in time to look at other areas that perhaps they did not consider when this policy was made. It is counterproductive, and it will mean well for the economy. These angles that were brought out regarding the effect of this policy should be looked at.
The challenge is that when you have a banker as the regulator of banks, I've said this in several fora, they really regulate for the interest of the bank.
So that means being pro-bank, anti-people.
And I think we need a more pro-people policy that will encourage industry to prosper, and that's the only way we can even have a prosperous country.